and I didn't plan to speak to my parents after that. The blatant favoritism was never even attempted to hide. My brother was celebrated for every little thing he did.
Congrats for passing your test, Poppet. Wow, 80 out of 100. Here's a brand new bike.
And only 1 year behind at school, too. You're one smart cookie, son.
I'm the youngest recipient of a writing prize, Dad. Doesn't that matter?
Of course it does. But writing words? Anyone can do that. You need charm, and that's what our boy Lucas has.
The only time I had dared to ask for anything was on that day. Mom? Dad? Can I have a bike, please? I expected Dad to just say no, but instead he hummed for a minute, disappeared, and when he came back, he was pushing Lucas's old, falling-apart bike.
Here.
Why does Lucas get a brand new car and I have to use his old bike?
Gosh, Lila, did we raise you to be such a spoilt brat? Appreciate what you have.
I spent all night fixing the bike up. Hello. My name is Lila, and I grew up with my twin brother Lucas. We lived in a grand mansion on a hill looking out over the ocean. Our family, the Montgomery family, were known for their publishing company. They worked with some of the biggest names in the literature world. Because my brother was born a boy, he was deemed the golden child early on. He got praised for everything, and I felt as though I existed on the sidelines only. I was lucky if they even remembered I existed. I knew about it, of course, but my life existing on a line that started at the bottom, reached to the top, and then sank again. This showed when I didn't realize it was a problem, when I did, and when I stopped caring. I still remember our 5th birthday. But Mommy, where's my pony?
Your pony? What makes you think you're getting anything, Lila? Did you earn it? Did you work for it?
But Lucas got a pony. Do I get any birthday present?
Lucas is our dear, precious child. He's going to make our family proud one day. You are just going to marry rich, and then you'll want for nothing.
At 5, that stung, but I didn't understand yet. At that age, I was just confused. When we turned 10, I began to understand more. The day before our birthday, my parents asked me to sleep in the basement. They wanted to remodel my room. I was so excited. They were going to finally redesign it like I had asked. I could barely sleep, I was so excited. The next morning, I was shaking. I couldn't wait to see what they had done with my room. I went upstairs and heard my brother shouting in excitement.
Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad. It's perfect. I love it.
I got to the top of the stairs and saw my parents standing outside of my room, and when I saw through the space between them, my heart sank. What happened to my room?
Your room? I don't remember you paying rent on this house, Lila.
They had completely redecorated, but it wasn't for me. It was for Lucas. They'd painted the walls black and put LED lights along the rim of the ceiling, bathing the room in neon purple. There was a desk spanning the entire wall, 3 large computer monitors, and a whole new gaming chair. You're kicking me out of this room? On my birthday?
It's our birthday, Lila. Oh my God, you're so selfish.
When you get yourself that rich husband, you'll get every room you ever wanted. Stop being so self-centered.
I slept in the basement thereafter, as they hadn't really planned what I would be doing. It was bitterly cold in winter and stiflingly hot in summer. But that 10th birthday taught me a lot. It taught me that if I wanted anything, I had to get it for myself. I didn't want to be married and rely on a husband. So I started studying. On our 16th birthday, my brother woke up to a brand new sports car with a giant bow on it, and I woke up to find that my parents had forgotten to set me a plate for my birthday. I walked to school that morning because they'd canceled the school bus since my brother didn't need it anymore. When I got to school, I sequestered myself away in the library and studied. From the age of 10, that's all I did. In my basement room, I studied. In the library, I studied. I excelled. I moved up 2 grades. I was due to leave school soon and was going to get emancipated. I had a college fund that I was going to use to pay for the lawyer with, and I didn't plan to speak to my parents after that. The blatant favoritism was never even attempted to hide. My brother was celebrated for every little thing he did.
Congrats for passing your test, Poppet. Wow, 80 out of 100. Here's a brand new bike.
And only 1 year behind at school, too. You're one smart cookie, son.
I'm the youngest recipient of a writing prize, Dad. Doesn't that matter?
Of course it does. But writing words? Anyone can do that. You need charm, and that's what our boy Lucas has.
The only time I had dared to ask for anything was on that day. Mom? Dad? Can I have a bike, please? I expected Dad to just say no, but instead he hummed for a minute, disappeared, and when he came back, he was pushing Lucas's old, falling-apart bike.
Here.
Why does Lucas get a brand new car and I have to use his old bike?
Gosh, Lila, did we raise you to be such a spoilt brat? Appreciate what you have.
I spent all night fixing the bike up, and then cycled to the school for the rest of the school year. On the day I graduated high school, my parents didn't attend the ceremony. It turns out they were busy putting a party together of their own. I thought, stupidly, hopefully, for a minute that they'd remembered I existed, but as I got closer to the house, I realized it wasn't for me. There was a huge banner across the front door that read, "Congratulations, Lucas, on passing your English test. 3rd time's the charm." Lucas and I were supposed to be in 10th grade, but I had just graduated 12th, and he was still in 9th. I heard the teachers saying they'd hold him back for longer if only the parents would let them.
That boy wouldn't graduate kindergarten if I had my say. He never tries hard at anything. He's going to fail school, college, and life.
That night, while I was taking phone calls from university deans and replying to emails with scholarship details, my brother was celebrating getting a C in an English test meant for students 1 year younger than him. I called the lawyer the next day and arranged for the emancipation hearing. I was ready to give him the payment, but I realized that my college fund was empty. Dad, what happened to my college fund?
You mean, what happened to the money I was thinking about loaning you? I gave it to your brother. He's got a big responsibility on his shoulders when he turns 18. What do you need college for anyway?
Exactly. We'll set you up a match and then you never have to think about school again. Just 2 more years and you'll be gone.
I graduated high school yesterday. I'm going to college in September. I need to get emancipated. I thought I was going to have that college fund to fall back on, but you gave that away.
Don't talk to me like that. Go to your room.
I don't have a room. You remodeled it for your idiot son. That day, I packed my stuff and ran away. I went to college and trusted that my parents wouldn't even try to bother me. They never sought me out, and I never contacted them. It was a clean cut. I had a scholarship, and because I was 16, I was put into a house with other young college kids. We studied hard, hung out, and I was finally settling down. By the time I graduated at 20, my brother was just getting into college. By the time I started working for the biggest media company in the country at 25, Lucas had graduated after 2 failed years. I suspect that he made it through on name alone. At 28, after opening my first office and taking on my 15th contract, I went to my hometown for a conference and decided to stop by.
Lila, it's been years.
That was by design, Father. I thought I would stop by as I'm here on business. I haven't heard much from Lucas and his entrance into the family company.
No, not yet. It's a lot of stress and you know your brother has a delicate disposition. We want to ease him into it.
And these video games are the way? When I saw Lucas, I was horrified. He was pale, as if he hadn't seen the sun in years. His skin was mottled with pimples and his clothes stank. Lucas, what are you doing to yourself?
Don't be jealous, Lila. I'm living for me. I don't have to get a stupid job or have a stupid wedding. I can just stay here forever, and Mom and Dad will look after me.
Aren't you embarrassed? Most people live at home these days because they don't have a choice. You're doing it to get out of making decisions.
You always were a miserable little goblin. It's not my fault Mom and Dad don't love you.
I'd officially reached my limit with my family. I wanted to see them punished for the way they'd raised me. So I started a motion and plan. First, I took out a mortgage against my family mansion, the place I lived in, but learned to stop calling home. I increased their mortgage little by little over the next year and a half until they were struggling a little more than they were used to. Then, I whispered to associates about Lucas's entrepreneurial talent. Eventually, these rumors caught fire and spread across the social connections, until it reached Lucas's ears, and he sat up for the first time in his life, thinking he was going to achieve something. He worked with a manufacturing company, borrowed insane amounts from our parents, and sank it all into his project. Only what he didn't know was that manufacturing company belonged to me, and I had my best negotiators, convincing him into increasingly stupid decisions.
Get the cheaper material, but keep the price high. You can't go wrong. That's a great idea. And if you push the workers to make everything in half the projected time, you can surprise the investors, and it'll be so good, it'll sell itself. Who needs advertising with a product this good? That's brilliant.
In the end, Lucas pushed a poor product onto the market, with a high price tag and zero awareness about it. Stores refused to stock, people refused to buy, and even when Lucas attempted to give it away, it was thrown in the trash. In the meantime, I was steadily still raising the mortgage on my parents' place. With the funds they'd poured into Lucas's business venture and the cost of the mansion, they couldn't afford anything anymore. They were forced to liquidate their company. Meanwhile, I was the CEO of my very own media empire, working with the biggest contracts in the industry, and finally feeling something towards my family. By this point, Lucas was in millions of dollars of debt, and Mom and Dad had nothing spare to bail him out with. I was there the day they finally handed over the eviction notices to my parents.
Sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Montgomery. You are officially bankrupt.
My parents, who had spent my entire life telling me that I deserved less because my brother was going to inherit the business, were now homeless.
Lila, please don't do this, not to your own parents.
You were never parents to me. Why don't you go grovel to your son? The one with charm and business sense? After all, I'm nothing but a rich man's wife, remember? Lucas somehow still held out hope for redemption. One evening, less than 2 weeks later, he received an invitation to a lavish party with the option of 2+1s. He arrived with my parents at his elbows, dressed in a rented tux, and grinning.
See, I'm still one of them. Us entrepreneur types stick together.
Above him, on the giant TV that the rest of the party could see, was a home video playing. There was Lucas, at 3, still in diapers because our parents wanted him to grow up in his own time. There he was again, at 5, being given my dollhouse. At 6, on his pony. 10, in his new room. 16 with his new bike. In all the shots, I was there in the background, quiet and unsmiling. In the older years of his life, I had compiled evidence of his arrogance, laziness, and the ridiculous demands he made of our parents. On screen, Lucas says, "It's my fault Mom and Dad don't love you." The whole crowd gasps and turns to Lucas, who flees the building in a fit of tears.
What is this?
Your legacy, Mother. The man you raised, the future you bought him, and the bed you made. Congratulations. Enjoy your success. The people in the party started jeering and booing until eventually my parents ran away, bright red and humiliated. But I didn't think they felt any shame. Eventually, they'd come to understand what they did. A few weeks after his Lucas downfall, he was, desperate to rebuild his wealth, Lucas launched a fake investment firm, luring in hopeful investors with promises of high returns. But it was all a lie, a classic Ponzi scheme. He used money from new investors to pay off earlier ones, carefully crafting the illusion of success. For a while, it worked. Investors praised his brilliant business sense, and Lucas basked in the illusion of his own resurrection, until it all came crashing down. One major investor tried to withdraw their money, only to find that there was nothing left. The truth unraveled quickly. Authorities launched an investigation, uncovering the fraud, and Lucas was arrested. The headlines were brutal, his reputation permanently destroyed. A month later, the same parents who had once dismissed me as worthless now stood before me, broke and desperate. Their wealth was gone, their influence vanished, and no one in their elite circles wanted anything to do with them. So they begged me for a job. I hired them, but on my terms. Gone were the days of lavish parties and expensive suits. Now they were fetching coffee, mopping floors, and answering calls like the very people they had once looked down upon. And then, Lucas returned. Fresh out of prison, his name was blacklisted, his career in ruins. No one would hire him. No company would even take his calls. With nowhere else to turn, he walked into my office, his pride shattered. I barely looked up. You know the drill, coffee, no sugar, and don't make me repeat myself. Lucas clenched his jaw, but he said nothing. He simply picked up the uniform and walked away. My family now works for me, and I decide when to pay them. Thanks for watching. And always had a smile that charmed everyone in the room. My parents adored her. They framed every one of her awards and plastered her pictures all over the house. My own achievements? They were met with indifference.
Why are you even trying? You'll never be as good as your sister.
Birthdays were the clearest reminder of how little I mattered. When Grace turned 15, my parents threw her a grand party and gifted her a car. For my 10th birthday, they forgot entirely. Mom, is there a cake for my birthday?
Oh, stop bothering me. I'm busy.
I didn't even receive a wish from any of them. Of course, Grace hated me too. After all, I destroyed her only child position. It wasn't just about the celebrations, it was how they treated me daily. If Grace spilled juice on the carpet, my parents laughed it off.
Kids will be kids.
Ugh, she's so cute, our clumsy princess.
But if I so much as dropped a glass, the response was different.
Anna, you're so stupidly clumsy. Clean that up right now.
Punishments for me were swift and harsh. I was grounded for days for the smallest mistakes. Grace? She got a gentle talk, maybe a hug if she cried. Meals were another battleground. My parents always served Grace first, giving her the best portions. I often got whatever was left. I was a mistake. My parents never said it outright, but their actions spoke louder than words ever could. My sister Grace was their golden child. She was born at the perfect time, when they were young, successful, and ready to embrace parenthood. Then I came along, unplanned and unwanted, 5 years later. From the moment I could understand the world around me, I knew I didn't belong. My earliest memories were filled with contrasts like Grace basking in our parents' affection while I was relegated to the shadows and comparisons.
Anna, stop making a mess. Why can't you be more like Grace?
Grace could do no wrong. She got straight A's, played the piano like a pro, and always had a smile that charmed everyone in the room. My parents adored her. They framed every one of her awards and plastered her pictures all over the house. My own achievements? They were met with indifference.
Why are you even trying? You'll never be as good as your sister.
Birthdays were the clearest reminder of how little I mattered. When Grace turned 15, my parents threw her a grand party and gifted her a car. For my 10th birthday, they forgot entirely. Mom, is there a cake for my birthday?
Oh, stop bothering me. I'm busy.
I didn't even receive a wish from any of them. Of course, Grace hated me too. After all, I destroyed her only child position. It wasn't just about the celebrations, it was how they treated me daily. If Grace spilled juice on the carpet, my parents laughed it off.
Kids will be kids.
Ugh, she's so cute, our clumsy princess.
But if I so much as dropped a glass, the response was different.
Anna, you're so stupidly clumsy. Clean that up right now.
Punishments for me were swift and harsh. I was grounded for days for the smallest mistakes. Grace? She got a gentle talk, maybe a hug if she cried. Meals were another battleground. My parents always served Grace first, giving her the best portions. I often got whatever was left.
Grace needs her strength. She's our future.
I didn't know what that made me, but it was clear I wasn't their priority. The worst part was how openly they favored Grace in public. At school events, they would cheer the loudest for her, while I stood on the sidelines, pretending it didn't hurt.
That's our girl. Grace, you're amazing.
When my turn came, they barely clapped. I stopped inviting them to my events altogether. The divide between us grew deeper as we got older. Grace thrived in the favoritism. She didn't need to work hard for their love. It was given freely. She basked in their attention and used it as a weapon against me.
Mom and Dad say I'm the smart one. Why don't you just stop trying? I'm 5 years older than you. I'm more beautiful, brilliant, and everyone loves me more. I have everything you can only wish for.
Her words stung, but I couldn't blame her entirely. She was just repeating what our parents had always made clear. There was one day I'll never forget. Grace had just won a regional spelling bee. My parents decided to take her out for a celebratory dinner at an expensive restaurant. I wasn't invited.
Stay home and do the dishes, Anna. This is Grace's moment. Don't ruin it for us. You're lucky enough to have been sent into this family by your creator. Make them proud and be obedient, will you?
I watched from the window as they drove off, leaving me alone in the house. That night, I made myself a peanut butter sandwich and cried myself to sleep. Even my room was a testament to their favoritism. Grace had a spacious, brightly lit room decorated with posters of her favorite musicians and shelves lined with trophies. I was given the smaller, darker room at the back of the house, with peeling wallpaper and a broken lamp they never bothered to fix.
You don't need anything fancy. Be grateful you have a roof over your head.
Gratitude. That's what they always demanded from me. Gratitude for the scraps of attention they threw my way. Gratitude for being allowed to exist in their home. Once, I overheard my parents talking late at night.
We shouldn't have had a second child. Things were perfect with Grace.
I know. Anna was a mistake, but we're stuck with her now. Let's try not to make another mistake. I can't deal with two Annas.
Hearing those words felt like a knife to my heart. They didn't see me as their daughter. I was a burden, a constant reminder of something they didn't want. The few moments I tried to bond with them ended in rejection. One summer, I asked my dad to teach me how to ride a bike, something he had done with Grace years earlier.
I'm too busy. Ask Grace to teach you.
Grace never had to ask for their time. It was given freely. I learned to stop asking. The emotional neglect turned into something more sinister as I grew older. My parents started blaming me for everything that went wrong in the house. If the bills were late, if the house was messy, if Grace was upset, it was always my fault.
If we didn't have to deal with you, life would be so much easier.
School became my refuge. Teachers praised my efforts, and friends offered me the kindness I never got at home. But even that wasn't safe from my parents' disdain.
Don't think good grades will make you better than Grace. She's still our star.
No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't win. The final straw came on a rainy afternoon when I accidentally broke Grace's favorite vase. She had been showing it off all week, a gift from our parents for her latest achievement. I didn't mean to knock it over, it was an accident. When my parents saw the shattered pieces, their anger was like a storm.
How could you? Do you know how expensive that was?
You're nothing but trouble, Anna.
I tried to explain, but they wouldn't listen.
She's just jealous because I'm better than her.
That night, they sent me to bed without dinner. I lay in the darkness, tears streaming down my face, wondering why I was even born. I realized something that night. I couldn't change them. I couldn't make them love me. But I could survive. I would find my own way, my own happiness, away from their shadows. When Grace got into college, she began wanting more, even though our parents practically handed everything to her. She craved more attention, power, and the thrill of getting away with anything. I didn't think much of it when she started hanging out with a new group of loud, flashy, and reckless friends. They came to the house once or twice, laughing and acting like they owned the world. My parents never questioned her choices. They would say she knew what she was doing and that she was just having fun. But Grace didn't know what she was doing. She was spiraling into something dangerous, and my parents were too blinded by their love for her to see it. It all started with money disappearing from my parents' account. Small amounts at first, but it grew larger every month. They thought it was an error.
I'll call the bank tomorrow. It's probably nothing serious.
Then one day, I overheard Grace on the phone in her room, talking about some big score and easy cash. I didn't know what it meant. When I tried to tell my parents, they dismissed me, as always.
Stop making up stories about your sister. You're just trying to get her in trouble.
2 weeks later, the police showed up at our doorstep. My parents were confused at first, standing in their perfect living room with their perfect daughter. But when the officers asked for Grace, everything shattered.
Miss Grace, you're under arrest for fraud, theft, and conspiracy.
What? This must be a mistake. Grace would never do such a thing.
But it wasn't a mistake. Grace had been stealing money from my parents and even went as far as borrowed money using their names without their knowledge. She used their accounts to fund her schemes, leaving them in debt. Thousands of dollars were gone, and Grace was at the center of it all. My parents begged the officers to let her go, but the evidence was overwhelming. Grace was taken away, leaving behind a trail of disbelief and devastation. She was found guilty in court and sentenced to 10 years in jail. In the days that followed, our house was eerily silent. My parents were consumed by guilt and despair. For the first time, they couldn't brush away the truth. Their perfect daughter wasn't so perfect after all.
She ruined us. What are we going to do?
We trusted her. How could she do this to us?
The debt Grace left behind was crushing. My parents had to sell some of their belongings to keep up with the payments. They even talked about selling the house. They were broken, not just financially, but emotionally. And that's when they turned to me. One evening, my mother knocked on my door. It was rare for her to come to my room, let alone speak to me in such a soft tone.
I know we haven't always treated you right, but we need you now. We're a family, and we need to stick together.
Her words made me laugh bitterly. And from the look on her face, it wasn't the reaction she expected. A family? Since when have we been a family?
We're sorry, Anna. We know we've been unfair to you, but we want to make things right.
Make things right? You mean now that Grace isn't here to be your perfect child? Now that you're drowning in debt because of her? Don't think you can suddenly use me as a replacement.
We've made mistakes, Anna, but we're trying.
No. You're not trying for me. You're trying because you have no one else. Where was this effort when I needed it? When I was the one crying in my room while you doted on Grace. Keep treating me the way you always have. I don't want your pity now. Moreover, I am moving out of your house. For your information, I have been working online for a while now and have saved enough to rent an apartment. I walked past them, leaving them speechless in my room. For once, I wasn't the one seeking their approval. I wasn't the one begging for scraps of their love. In the weeks that followed, they tried again and again to reach out to me. My mother cooked meals and invited me to join them at the table. My father asked about my schoolwork and offered to help, but I kept my distance. I wasn't ready to forgive them, and I wasn't sure if I ever would. Grace's arrest left scars that would never fully heal. My parents had to confront the reality they had spent years ignoring: their favoritism, their neglect, their misplaced trust. The police informed us that they discovered Grace was 3 weeks pregnant. Grace was pregnant and didn't even know who the father was. This news broke my parents even more. Whenever she gives birth, the child will be brought to my parents. The news saddened them, as they were already drowning in debt. Due to the money my parents were paying to cover their debt, they became broke. I heard they sold their house and now live in a one-bedroom flat with neighbors who play loud music all night. They had to look for jobs to sustain themselves. I heard my dad now drives a garbage truck, while my mom works as a maid for a wealthy family. Rumor has it that she is treated poorly in the house, but she has to keep the job to survive. As for me, I finally moved out and began to find my own strength. I didn't need their approval anymore. I had survived their rejection, and now I was learning to thrive despite it. As part of my revenge, I anonymously posted my dad's number online as a garbage collector. I heard he has been receiving non-stop calls to pick up trash, and he eventually had to change his phone number. For the first time in my life, I wasn't living in Grace's shadow, and I wasn't going to let anyone, not even my parents, dim my light again. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment. My name is Janet. My boyfriend Tucker is the greatest guy I've ever met. He's a hard worker and so smart. His family doesn't think that I'm good for him. Despite having a medical degree and several awards for my achievements over the years, I still couldn't earn their hard-won respect. See, it wouldn't matter if I were the president of the United States or a homeless woman on the streets. Nothing about my personality or career would change their minds. I am a black woman. Tucker is a good guy, but he comes from a family of racists. He said this himself. He warned me that he wasn't overly keen on introducing me to his family because he knew that their reactions would be upsetting. We kept our relationship a secret from his family for a long time. By the time we considered getting married, I had finished my residency and was starting to specialize in trauma response. When I was young, my parents and I were in a terrible accident caused by a drunk driver. I was knocked into a 6-month coma and woke up to a weak body and no parents. Ever since, I've known that I wanted to be like the doctors that worked tirelessly to save my life. About a month after my residency finished, Tucker invited me to dinner. We went to a lovely cafe where we enjoyed a great meal. Tucker stood up and then dropped to one knee in front of my chair.
Janet, you are my sun and my stars. I love you in the day and the night because you always light up, no matter where you go. You make me smile no matter what, on the hard days and the impossible ones. You remind me of all the good things in the world. We've been together since we were both 20, young and dumb and full of love to share, and I'm glad that I found you to share that love with. Here we are 15 years later, and I am ready to say that I want to share more. I want to share the rest of my life, no matter how sick we get. I'm ready to spend every minute with you, no matter how annoying we start to find each other. I will fight every battle at your side and love you for every part of you, whether a perceived flaw or not. Our lives are intertwined, and we are meant to spend the rest of our lives together. So, Janet Pomono, will you marry me?
Tears pricked at my eyes and I felt my cheeks heat up. Yes, of course, yes. 1,000,000 times, yes. He slipped the ring onto my finger, and then, all of a sudden, we were tied together for the rest of our lives, and I had never been happier. The other people in the restaurant stood and clapped as I threw myself into Tucker's arms. That night, as we laid in bed pressed into each other, I voiced my concerns. We'll probably have to talk to your family now.
I don't think that it will go down well. They really are the worst sort of racists, you know. They'll pitch a royal fit when I tell them about you.
Let them. If they don't learn to accept us, then that's their problem. I want to give them the opportunity to do better, though. And this is the best way to go about that, I think. I want to have the chance for a family.
And I want you to have a family, too. But please, don't get your hopes up.
I promise I won't. I'll keep my expectations low, but at least we can say we gave it a try. I was pleased that he was willing to try, but I was anxious, too. I've met a fair few racist people in my time, and I've experienced the worst of what people are capable of. I've had patients refuse treatment, shout slurs, and accuse me of millions of things. I could weather whatever they threw at me. It was a few weeks after the engagement that we were both able to take time off to make the trip to his parents' house in the next state over. I worked as a doctor, so my time was not often free, and Tucker was a successful lawyer in his uncle's law firm. We were both busy people. One weekend, though, after his case had come to a close, and I had completed a course and worked enough overtime to earn some off time, we jumped into the car and drove 10 hours to his parents' house. When we got there, Tucker and I were both quiet with nerves. We were both about to take a real risk, and we had no way of knowing how this would go. Tucker got out of the car first, and I followed behind him, nervous to show my face. When they opened the door, his parents pulled Tucker into a hug and invited him inside. I tried to introduce myself before they closed the door in my face, but they just looked at me like I was dirt.
Are you here to clean the cars? I'll pay 50% extra if you wash my son's car, too. There's a good girl, and be sure you don't steal anything. I'm on the police force, so I have a gun. Dad, no. This is Janet. Mom, Dad, this is my fiancé.
Are you joking? This girl? But Tucker, darling, she's black.
And we've immediately landed on the reason why I never told you about this before. Janet and I have been together for 15 years.
We were still standing on the porch, but Tucker took my hand and pulled me inside the house. His parents had no choice but to let me inside too, though they were visibly reluctant to let me sit down.
15 years, Tucker? That's not possible. You told me that you were dating a girl who was studying medicine. Whatever happened to her?
She graduated, and now she's a doctor. Janet is the doctor, Mom. Nonsense. Who's ever heard of a black doctor? Civilized people, Dad. People not born in the 1600s. How could you hold on to these prejudices after all this time? What proof do you need that the color of your skin has no bearing on your worth? White people are the superior race.
I think that's about as much as I'm willing to suffer through, Tucker.
Excellent. Let her go, Tucker. There will always be other girls.
I stood up, and Tucker stood up with me.
Sorry, Father, that you were under the misconception that I would be choosing you over her, but that's simply not the case. I'm going to leave, and at any point in the near future, you're free to apologize. But if you never do, then I'll never return.
We left, and they didn't come after him. We didn't speak until we pulled up to the hotel, and even then, it was only to offer to carry the bags. That night, we ordered pizza and laid in bed watching movies and didn't discuss the event at all. It was upsetting for us both, but I was old hat at having no parents by then. For Tucker, the absolute in their relationship was taking its toll. We returned home the next day, and then the new hell started. First, we had police officers at the door, demanding to know what I had done to Tucker. When Tucker came to the door beside me, he asked what was wrong.
We received a call that you were being held hostage. Well, as you can see, I'm not. I think perhaps you were tricked by my parents. I'm incredibly sorry that you had to listen to that nonsense. They're truly despicable. I work as a lawyer. I could help you prosecute for wasting police time. Okay, we'll be in touch. I apologize for the disruption of your day.
The next day, my boss called me and said someone had been writing emails claiming I have been stealing hospital supplies, but she knew it wasn't true immediately. I knew it was my mother-in-law. Later that day, Tucker called to tell me that he had received a call from his parents. It turned out that they lost their life savings in scam and had been forced to sell their house to cover their debts. After all that they had said, they wanted Tucker to give them money so that they could get another place to live. As he told me this, he laughed it off.
As if I would give them a single dime. Those two are insane.
They truly were, but we never would have guessed what they would do next. A week after he had told them no, they showed up at our house while Tucker had just stepped out for a few minutes. I answered the door and they barged their way in and started waving guns around and threatening me.
You harlot. You stole our son from us and now you're forcing him to refuse to give us money. We'll make you pay for this.
That's right. There's no way a good boy like our Tucker would ever willingly marry someone like you.
They pointed their guns at me and they would have pulled the triggers. Then suddenly police and Tucker burst through the door behind them. When my mother-in-law saw the police, she collapsed as a doctor. I had to resuscitate her before the police handcuffed.
Why would you call the cops on us? Oh, I wish that I had aborted you so we could have saved us the trouble of having a son that turned out like you. She must have used black magic on you.
Before they could say another word, they were dragged away by the police.
I'm so sorry, honey. As soon as I saw my parents' car in the driveway, I assumed the worst and called the police, and then had to wait for them to arrive to come inside. And I am very glad that I called them. Are you hurt? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm just really shaken up. I thought I was going to die for a second there. The police dragged them away and made sure not to be gentle with them. I think I even saw one officer slam my father-in-law's head off the car door frame as he forced him into the back of a squad car. As it turned out, the two of them had been drinking and doing drugs and talking about how I ruined their son's life and that they needed to come to our state and kill me so that their son could then marry a white woman. It was so incredibly absurd and insane. Neither Tucker nor I could have possibly seen this coming. A month later, the two of them were in court, and the judge that was presiding over the case was black. Regardless, though, he was more than fair, and despite how cruel they were being in the courtroom towards him, he only gave them the minimum sentence providing they maintained good behavior in prison. Each was given 15 years with a chance of parole after 8 years. However, the two of them just couldn't keep out of trouble and kept causing fights with the black inmates around them. As far as I'm concerned, though, it serves them right. Their hatred put them into prison, and their hatred is keeping them in prison. It's rather poetic, really. As for Tucker and I, we're still very much in love with one another, and just yesterday we celebrated the birth of our second child, a lovely little girl named Kayla. Along with our son, we are the happiest family on the planet, and it fills my heart with joy that I was finally able to find the family that I've always been longing for. Thanks for watching.
I don't know who you think you are, but around here, I'm the king. What I say, goes. You think you're so smart, then dance. What? Dance, or I tell them you attacked me. You can't do this. You're taking advantage of your power. I felt a kick to my thigh, and suddenly I was being tackled to the ground. I hit my head, knocked my shoulder, and had the breath shocked out of me. Cold handcuffs were secured around my wrists, so tight that it felt like they were being crushed. Didn't you just hear me? I told you I can do whatever I want, which means I can make you do whatever I want. Now dance. He hauled me up by my elbow, and I heard my bones grinding in my wrist. I cried out in pain, but he didn't relent. The officer, who I was beginning to suspect the name of, started to hum a circus tune, and in that moment, I recognized the danger. This man had put away hundreds of men and women for drug possession while planting evidence. He'd been commemorated by the mayor. If he was going to try and tell the world that I was doing or dealing drugs, he had the authority for that. So I danced. That's right, Mikey. Dance like your criminal record depends on it. I was utterly humiliated. I felt tears in my eyes, and the police officer took joy from this. I also realized a little late that he knew my name. My name is Mike, and when I was 3, I was in an accident that left me completely blind in both eyes. Blindness is a challenge I live with daily, but it's something I've learned to move around. Some people, however, are less inclined to handle it with the grace it deserves. There's kids in my town who made my life difficult. Despite the half-hearted anti-bullying campaigns and the attempts to make the town more accessible, children found ways to make being blind harder than the initial difficulties I faced. In my first year of school, in grade 1, I sat next to a boy who would move my stuff around my desk all the time. He liked to snigger and joke, and steal my lunch. The teacher always told me to turn the other cheek.
Boys like James have a hard time at home. They need compassion rather than constantly being put into situations that make them feel guilty. Do you understand?
Yes, Miss Jessica.
Good boy. Run along a play now. Don't forget to watch out for water around the water fountains. It can get very slippery.
Sure, Miss Jessica. I'll watch out for it. She spluttered in surprise, caught by her own slip-up, but I left the room. Almost immediately, as I was trying to go down the stairs, James swiped my cane and threw it away. I lost my footing and tumbled down several flights of stairs. This tormenting went on, all the way through elementary, middle, and then high school. Even in high school, the teacher still touted the same lines. I had to be considerate of James's home life. I think by the time I was 15, I was imagining that James lived in a cardboard box, ate rats for dinner, and had a vague guardian figure who beat him and left him alone all the time. When I graduated and went to university, I wasn't sure what my life would look like in 10 years down the line, but there I was, 28 years old, and working my way up through the city council. My dad had a position there as the attorney general, and now that I had my law degree, I wanted to be a standing judge. It meant years and years of hard work and breaking down barriers in the workplace. But I'd made it that far, and wasn't ready to stop working anytime soon. Everything was going well. I had my 20-year plan, and I was set on the path. And then, a police officer with a very familiar name started getting commendations.
This man is the same age as you, James Stinson. Do you know him?
Dad, that was the guy that tormented me at school.
Oh, well, he must have turned over a new leaf. Look at all the good he's been doing recently.
I looked over the man's papers and saw that he had the highest arrest rate for drug traffickers in the state. He was also getting an award for services towards the vulnerable, which almost made me choke on my coffee. When has he ever done anything for the vulnerable except make their lives hell? I was suspicious, but I was also busy. I hadn't expected our paths to cross again, because why would they? One day, maybe 6 months after I saw the news, I was out running errands and on my way to meet my grandfather when I felt someone suddenly grasp my shoulder. We were in an alley between the ice cream shop and the bank. Whatever was happening, I feared that no one was going to see us. Was I about to be mugged? I don't carry cash.
I'm not trying to steal from you, sir. I asked you to stop.
I didn't hear you. Please take your hands off of me.
As a man of the law, I'm allowed to leave my hands on you, actually.
That's definitely not true. And what do you mean, a man of the law? Are you a lawyer or a police officer?
Clearly, I'm an officer. What are you, blind?
Well, actually,
stop resisting arrest.
Arrest?
I have a male, 30-something, 5'8", resisting arrest. Appears to have drug-induced confusion. I'm searching him now.
I felt hands on me, and I was frozen. There are lots of things about being blind that I hate. The inconsiderateness of others, the inaccessibility of the world, and people touching me against my will. Hey, get your hands off of me!
I've confiscated a weapon.
He ripped the cane from my hands, and I felt like I was back at school, being tormented for the crime of being blind.
Look me in the eye when I'm talking to you.
I can't.
You think you're being funny? I'll give you funny. Dispatch. I found drugs on the suspect. Arresting now. Send a car to 5th Avenue.
I was scared. Scared in a way I hadn't been in a long time. It felt unfair, but I knew that I hadn't had any drugs with me. I've never taken drugs a day in my life. I've never even touched drugs. I have about 1,000 people who can vouch for me, as well as drug tests, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be camera footage somewhere of you planting drugs, which means you can be tried for drug possession and bearing false witness.
What are you talking about? You can't get out of drug possession that easily.
Is that what you told all those other people that you had arrested?
I don't know who you think you are, but around here, I'm the king. What I say, goes. You think you're so smart? Then dance.
What?
Dance, or I tell them you attacked me.
You can't do this. You're taking advantage of your power. I felt a kick to my thigh, and suddenly I was being tackled to the ground. I hit my head, knocked my shoulder, and had the breath shocked out of me. Cold handcuffs were secured around my wrists, so tight that it felt like they were being crushed.
Didn't you just hear me? I told you I can do whatever I want, which means I can make you do whatever I want. Now dance.
He hauled me up by my elbow, and I heard my bones grinding in my wrist. I cried out in pain, but he didn't relent. The officer, who I was beginning to suspect the name of, started to hum a circus tune, and in that moment, I recognized the danger. This man had put away hundreds of men and women for drug possession while planting evidence. He'd been commemorated by the mayor. If he was going to try and tell the world that I was doing or dealing drugs, he had the authority for that. So I danced. That's right, Mikey. Dance like your criminal record depends on it. I was utterly humiliated. I felt tears in my eyes, and the police officer took joy from this. I also realized a little late that he knew my name. You know who I am? Who are you? It doesn't matter who I am, does it? It matters that I'm in charge, and you have to listen to me. So you best be listening. Keep dancing. How many people have you forced to do this? I don't know why you think you get to ask questions. Do you want me to add in possession of a firearm? So you're carrying drugs and firearms to plant on people? Is that what you've been doing this whole time, James? Planting things on people and getting a good arrest record? Do you have no shame? I was still dancing, still looking like an absolute idiot, and I was beginning to feel like my brain was spinning. I wanted to throw up, and I wasn't sure how much of that was the sudden unexpected exercise, or the realization that one of the best cops in the city was corrupt. You'll never get away with this. Watch me.
Don't worry, sir. People will be.
I stopped dancing, my limbs filling with an ache I couldn't describe, and I turned to the sound of the person's voice. It's a crime to record a police officer against his will.
I wasn't recording, sir. I was live streaming you harassing a blind man and threatening to plant weapons on him.
No, you have to stop filming right now.
Sorry, no can do, sir. There are already 2 million live watchers, and if I record for another 2 minutes, I'll be making bank. And you're making history.
I was overjoyed that the man was getting his comeuppance, but the strain of the whole situation had me feeling progressively worse. And then suddenly, I was losing consciousness.
You made that man pass out.
Put down the phone or I'll shoot. Just as I drifted completely, I heard a gunshot, and then I was unconscious and unaware anymore. Later, when I woke up, I recognized I was in the hospital. I heard the beeping, felt the rough blankets under my fingers, and I could smell the anti-skeptic. Hello? Ah, son, I'm so glad you're awake. Dad? What happened? It turns out that your old bully didn't learn his lesson at all. He just expanded business. The doctors cleared me to leave, but I had to take pain medication and my leg was wrapped up in a bandage. I went on social media and saw that the video of James planting drugs on me and harassing me was wildly viral. The internet was going off the rails with calls for punishment. I talked to my dad and went to go see James in the city jail that evening. I was still bruised and sore, but that just fueled my anger. James, I always knew you'd end up behind bars. Get lost, man. Make me. All through school, I was a passive victim. I talked to teachers, I lost lunch times and break time to the library to avoid the assault. I had no birthday parties to attend, or people to share snacks with, or games to win or lose. And James was the main cause of it. Worst of all, after all that, I found out that James's dad had a respectable job at a bank, and they lived in a house on the hill with a pool and 2 cars. He was doted on as a boy. His evil disposition wasn't because of difficulties at home. It was just a natural behavior for him. What you don't realize, James, is that it's me you now have to listen to. Now, I am in charge. You see, my dad gets to choose where you go. There are currently over 100 people in a very particular prison that you put there by planting evidence. They'll be released soon, but not before there's a teensy bit of overlap between your stays. I sure hope nothing bad happens to you. No, you can't. I promise you, I can. Please, I'll do anything. Dance. James danced and danced, and even though I couldn't see him, I could hear him panting and crying and panicking. I laughed and walked away, letting the other police officers in, the people he'd made an enemy of, and they watched, clapped and filmed him. He burned with humiliation, tears streaming down his face, and I told him I'd see him in court. The next week, I sat in the court and listened as my dad read the guilty verdict and sentenced James to almost life in prison. You've destroyed so many lives, and so it's fair that your own is destroyed too. You'll be sentenced to 20 years in max prison with no change of parole. And when you are released, you will do 5 years of unpaid work in a school for the blind to repay the damage you have done to my son, to the community, and to disabled people all over the world. A week later, I heard from one of the prisoners at Max Prison who had been released after they were cleared of all charges. We made him dance. He is now the only person in the prison who does laundry duty, so he is in the basement, morning to night, cleaning everyone's clothes and bedding, because there's nowhere for them to put him that's safe. He's the most hated man in prison right now, and he's competing with some pretty mean prison guards. When I went to visit the prison a few months later to check on things, the warden told me that James was completely isolated. When the other prisoners finished eating, James would eat on his own, and then he would have to scrub the whole floor. He'd then go back to the laundry room and keep doing the washing until he went to bed.
He's never around other people now. He's the target of relentless bullying.
After all those years at school, I couldn't think of anyone better suited to this punishment. And considering all the lives he'd managed to ruin by having people needlessly arrested and imprisoned, I knew I wasn't the only one.
Thanks for watching.
Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment. Grandpa's health started to decline when I was in my late 20s. At first, it was little things, forgetting names, losing track of time. Then it got worse. He was diagnosed with early-stage Alzheimer's, and Grandma, who was already struggling with arthritis, became his full-time caregiver. Although in reality, most of the caregiving fell to me. They tried their best to be self-sufficient, but they needed my help more and more. One day after Grandpa had a particularly bad day, I confronted Meredith in the hopes that I could enlist her help. Meredith, I need your help. We can't do this alone.
I'm not a nurse, Corey. Find someone else. Maybe find someone that gives a crap.
They took us in when we had no one. Don't you feel any obligation to repay that kindness?
Nope. I didn't ask to be born into this family. And besides, why would I want to take care of them? I can think of way more fun things to do than to hang around two old farts and a loser like you.
Her apathy was infuriating, and her cruelty was unbearable. She started yelling at Grandpa when he forgot things, calling him useless and a burden. She mocked Grandma for being slow and clumsy. Hi there, my name is Corey. If I'm being honest, my life has always revolved around my sister, Meredith. Not by choice, but because she's the kind of person who demands attention, selfish, dramatic, and impossible to ignore. We used to be close when we were little, but everything changed when our parents died in a car accident. I was 15, Meredith was 17, and suddenly, we were orphans. Grandma Rose and Grandpa Eric, our father's parents, stepped in. They were already in their late 60s, but they didn't hesitate to take us in. Family takes care of family, Grandpa said when we moved in. They gave us a stable home and all the love they had. But Meredith didn't see it that way. To her, it was just another burden she didn't want to carry.
Meredith, do you mind setting the table for dinner?
Do it yourself, Grandma. I'm busy.
She asked you nicely, Meredith. The least you can do is help out. Maybe stop staring at your phone all day and stop being lazy.
Oh, shut up, Corey. No one asked for your opinion.
This was typical Meredith. Always taking, never giving. When Grandpa lent her money to buy a used car, he made her promise to look for a job. Instead, she spent her days driving to parties and racking up parking tickets. Not only that, but since our grandparents co-signed for the car for her, they started getting calls from collections agencies when she stopped making car payments. Meredith, you're 3 months behind on payments. They're threatening to repossess and tow the car.
Relax, Grandpa. It's just a car.
But we co-signed for it. If they repossess it, that will negatively affect our credit score.
I can always get another.
It's not just a car. Meredith, are you really so selfish and stupid that you don't realize that if they repossess it, that means that you won't get another one? No car dealership is going to sell you a replacement car when they were forced to take this one back. Plus, you aren't the only person that will suffer if that happens. Do you really not care about how it will affect our grandparents?
God, you're so dramatic. All of you need to calm down and relax. Just stop whining.
Meredith's selfishness wasn't just about money. One Thanksgiving, she decided at the last minute not to come to dinner. Grandma had spent days cooking her favorite dishes, sweet potato casserole, pecan pie, and was heartbroken when Meredith called.
I've got other plans.
Plans? But it's Thanksgiving. We were looking forward to spending it together as a family.
What family? You aren't my mother, and I'd rather do something fun. Yeah, well, I'll catch you next time.
Meredith replied before hanging up. That night, Grandma cried as we packed the untouched food into containers. I tried to comfort her, but my own resentment toward Meredith was growing stronger. After losing our parents, our grandparents had really stepped up and filled the void they left behind. We never had to worry about anything with them, and they truly were loving and wonderful people. It enraged me the way Meredith would treat them. As the years went by, it became clear that Meredith had no intention of changing. She moved in and out of the house, leaving chaos in her wake. Bills went unpaid, valuables went missing, and every confrontation ended with her blaming someone else. Meredith, you've got to start paying rent.
Rent? This is Grandma and Grandpa's house. Why should I pay anything?
Because they're on a fixed income. Do you even care how much stress you're causing them?
Not my problem. Besides, we both know that they are loaded. They have more than enough money.
They're retired, though. Whatever money they have has to last until they pass away, and if we're lucky, they'll live for another 40 years.
I hope not. I, for one, could use that money.
I was so disgusted with her. It was a sad day when I realized that not only had I lost my parents, but at some point I had lost my sister as well. I didn't know who this horrible person was anymore, and I wanted nothing to do with her. And then things began to take a turn for the worse. Grandpa's health started to decline when I was in my late 20s. At first, it was little things, forgetting names, losing track of time. Then it got worse. He was diagnosed with early-stage Alzheimer's, and Grandma, who was already struggling with arthritis, became his full-time caregiver. Although in reality, most of the caregiving fell to me. They tried their best to be self-sufficient, but they needed my help more and more. One day after Grandpa had a particularly bad day, I confronted Meredith in the hopes that I could enlist her help. Meredith, I need your help. We can't do this alone.
I'm not a nurse, Corey. Find someone else. Maybe find someone that gives a crap.
They took us in when we had no one. Don't you feel any obligation to repay that kindness?
Nope. I didn't ask to be born into this family. And besides, why would I want to take care of them? I can think of way more fun things to do than to hang around two old farts and a loser like you.
Her apathy was infuriating, and her cruelty was unbearable. She started yelling at Grandpa when he forgot things, calling him useless and a burden. She mocked Grandma for being slow and clumsy, and when Joe entered the picture, things got even worse. Joe was everything you'd expect from someone who would date Meredith: loud, rude, and completely devoid of empathy. He mocked Grandpa's memory lapses and laughed at Grandma's struggle to carry laundry up the stairs. One night, after Joe made a particularly cruel joke about Grandma's cane, I snapped, "Get out of this house, Joe. What are you gonna do, Corey? Lecture me? Because we both know that you don't have the balls to throw me out yourself. You're too weak to do anything. Leave. Now!"
He's my guest, Corey. You don't get to decide who stays.
A week later, they were gone. They left without a word, abandoning our grandparents in their time of greatest need. I wish they had left because I told them to, but I think they were just sick of constantly being asked to help out around the house. At first, I was furious. But as the days passed, I realized life was better without them. The house was quiet and peaceful, and as an added benefit, my grandma and grandpa seemed happier. For the next few years, I devoted myself to caring for my grandparents. It was hard, physically, emotionally, financially, but I wouldn't have had it any other way. They had given me everything, and I was determined to repay them. But eventually, my grandpa's illness caught up with him. He passed away on a crisp November morning. He held my hand and asked me to look after my grandma, and then he said that he loved us both very much, and then he was gone. But Grandma didn't last long without him. 3 days later, she passed away in her sleep. At their funeral, I felt an overwhelming sense of loss, but also peace. They had been together for over 50 years, and now they were reunited. Honestly, I felt that they loved each other so much that the thought of living without one another was too much, and I think my grandma died so that she could be with him again. After the funeral, I returned to the house to start packing up their belongings. That's when Meredith showed up, with Joe.
Hey, baby brother. I saw the good news online.
Good news? How can you still be such a ghoul?
I see you still can't take a joke and that you still have a rod up your butt. What other reason would I be here in this dump? I'm here for the will, of course.
What are you doing here? You can't be serious. After abandoning them years ago, you think they would leave you with something? Why not? It's what we're owed. We're family after all. You abandoned them. You don't deserve a dime.
Joe and I are here to collect our share. Spare me the lecture, Corey. We'll wait here until the will is read. And once we get our share, then and only then will we leave.
You can't stay here. Besides, the will's reading is private. You two assholes aren't allowed in the office.
Yeah, right. As if a scrawny loser like you could keep us out. Go ahead and try and stop us.
The next morning, I left extra early in the morning to meet with the lawyer. When the will was read, I was stunned. My grandparents had left everything to me. The house, their savings, everything. The lawyer handed me a note in Grandma's handwriting. Use this money to see the world, Corey. Live the life you've always dreamed of. When I returned home, I quickly packed a bag and headed to the airport. Just as my grandma had instructed, I bought a ticket to the Bahamas, and once there, I booked a stay at an all-inclusive resort. It had been years since I had been on vacation, and I needed the downtime badly. It was expensive since I did everything last minute, but I now had the money to afford it, and time away did wonders for me. However, my vacation was interrupted.
Where are you? When's the reading?
I'm on vacation and it already happened. They left everything to me.
You're lying!
No, Meredith. They gave me everything because they knew I was the only one who cared.
That's not fair. What about Joe and I?
It's more than fair, actually. But what I don't get is why you think I should care. You're both adults. Why do I need to take care of you?
Because we're broke, Corey. We owe hundreds of thousands of dollars to debt collectors, and we needed our grandparents' money to get us out of debt. We can't even afford to buy groceries. We are that poor. Please have some sympathy for us.
She did her best to try to make me feel sympathy for them, but it wasn't working. After the way they had treated me and our grandparents, there was no way I was going to have an ounce of sympathy for them. That's when I came up with a rather evil plan. Fine. I'll help you.
Wait, you will?
Yes, I will, but I'm not ending my vacation early for you two. You'll have to come here to me. I'm in China.
China? We can't afford a plane ticket to China. We literally have no money at all.
It's fine. I'll pay for you two to fly out here, and I'll even put you up in a 5-star hotel. We'll sip champagne and eat caviar while we hash out things. Sound good?
Oh my God, yes! The flight better be first class, though.
I agreed, and I paid for a one-way trip to China for them. Thankfully, greed made my sister and Joe incredibly blind and stupid because they didn't notice that the flights were one-way, and they didn't even question why I had traveled to China, of all places, whereas I was in the Bahamas. While they were flying across the ocean, I called the police office in China where they were to land, and I described my sister and Joe to the officers, and I lied to them and told them that they were drug traffickers. The police took my story seriously, and they arrested Joe and Meredith shortly after they landed. Of course, without any money, they couldn't afford a lawyer, and so they were railroaded through the Chinese judicial system. From what I heard, they ended up serving several months in jail while the whole thing was sorted out. Meanwhile, back home, I sold my grandparents' house. It was a beautiful house, but there were too many painful memories there, and I wanted a fresh start, so I sold it and moved across the country to the coast where I bought a house right on the beach with a very high-tech security system. I also spent some of my inheritance on buying a cafe near to my new home. It took a bit to get both just the way I wanted them, but I built a life for myself there, and whenever I wasn't working, I was traveling the globe as my grandmas had wanted for me. I know one day that Joe and Meredith will find a way to get back home, but I doubt it will be anytime soon, and even then, I didn't exactly leave a trail for them to follow, so it will be many years before they figure out where I am. Should they ever find me, though, I plan to hit them with a restraining order. As for me, in the meantime, I'm living the good life. I do miss my grandparents, but I also know that they would be proud that I stood up to my sister, and I know that they would very much approve of how I live my life. Thanks for watching.